This is my new and improved film developing setup, the JOBO CPP2. So if you've watched videos or anything in the past, you've kind of seen roughly what my film developing setup is. It's small to the point, it's definitely not where I want it to be, it's not the best by any means, and there's a lot of room for improvement. Previously, I've used a lot the Patterson tank. You know, I can do 2 rolls of 35 mil or 1 roll of 120. And it's great if that's all I have to do, but if you pile up things, you end up having 4, 5, 6 rolls, or if you've even got just 3 rolls of 120. Now, instead of going from a 15, 20-minute process, you're looking at an hour, hour and a half process. It's cleaning out, changing the film, switching the chemicals, especially if you're doing C41, you have to factor in temperature. And I had a little work sink back there, but temperature's still kind of tricky. You kind of have to overheat it to make sure you get the chemicals to the right temp. And then when it brings down to the appropriate temperature, then you can go ahead and change it and stuff. But even then, it's still hard to regulate. So we've arrived here. I've probably put 30-ish rolls of film through it already. So I've kind of got the hang of how it works and the setup and everything. And this is pretty much what I'm gonna be using kind of from here on out. Even though it is a little bit difficult, if you're just doing 1 or 2 rolls of film, it's kind of a process. It's still so much cleaner, more effective and efficient, and just works a lot better and cuts out a lot of the room for error as far as the human aspect of it is concerned. So this has been just fantastic, especially for color. I have constant temperature regulation with this. So I'll kind of walk you through what this setup looks like, how many rolls of film I can develop compared to the 1 or 2 with the little Patterson tank, and just how it works and how I've been using it so far. So I have 3 different tank sizes. I have the smaller tank, which can hold 2 rolls of 35 or 1 roll of 120, which is pretty much what the Patterson did. Then I have a slightly bigger tank here. This one can hold 5 rolls of 35 mil or 3 rolls of 120. Then we can just get way up there. And then this one can hold 8 rolls of 35 millimeter or 5 rolls of 6x9 or 120 film. Now there is a process where you can actually put 2 rolls of 120 on a single sprocket, I guess. I haven't gotten there quite yet. Haven't been able to find a lot of information about how to do that properly, and I struggled kind of doing it myself first time, so I'm kind of putting that on hold for now. So I'll give you a rough breakdown of how it works. Now this is great at regulating temperature within a certain amount. As far as for color C41, it's really good at keeping that temperature of whatever Celsius it is off the top of my head. I can't remember quite right now. It's really good at either getting it up to that within a few degrees or kind of dropping it down within a few degrees. So the room temps or the colder temps for black and white, it's really not good with getting it towards those colder temperatures. It's more for hot or room temp, which is fine because it's more crucial for C41, and you can do black and white just at room temp as long as you adjust your times and everything. And it'll still hold that temperature very well. So once you've filled this whole thing up with the temperature water you want to get it at, I would highly recommend filling it with the water as close to temp as you can to kind of speed up the process of this machine getting it to the exact temperature within 0.1 degrees that it needs to be. So once you have your water in here, there's a pump that's going to activate once it gets to the certain height, and it's going to constantly cycle that water in through the heating element over here, which will bring that warm water and run it through where this temp is sitting at. So that makes it very effective at keeping your film in that tank at the exact temperature you want. Over here on the back end, I have slots for all my chemicals. I have all these little tanks. Of course, I have the milliliters written on the side, which allows me to accurately pick out what I need for each one. I even have little beakers here for another great usage for if you're going to use your chemicals once or anything, which is kind of recommended once you get to the stage. If you're going to use it for 5 rolls of film in this tank, after that you use it and use a 1-to-1 ratio, and you kind of swap out those chemicals. That way you know you're going to get the best results. Again, that's preference, and I know a lot of people have different ratios or how long that they'll use their chemicals before they toss it. So with these tanks on the sides here, you have, of course, how many rolls of film and everything you can fit into each tank, but it also tells you the amount of chemicals you need for each tank, which is where these little beakers come in handy. So if I need, let's say, 640 milliliters of chemicals for this development, I can use This is ounces. There's milliliters. I can use this. This goes up to 260, but I can use these to get the exact amount of chemicals in there. Whereas these are mainly for storage and keeping it at the temperature you need it for, because it's actually sunk into where the water is held in this tank, which is great. So not only is, the film being kept at temperature, your chemicals are being kept at the exact temperature as well. So you have two different plugs up here. The top is going to be for your bigger sheet film and things like that. The bottom one is the only one that I use for these specific tanks. It's at the appropriate level to rotate these tanks. Now there's two ways it goes. There's either a gear method or a magnet method. So for this one, it's adjusted by the gear. So once I slide it in there, it's gonna lock in place with the motor on here, and that's gonna rotate it. So whereas if you know anything about using a Patterson tank, you know that you constantly have to flip it, or you have a knob where you twist it every 10 seconds on the minute, anything like that. This is constant agitation. So you put it on here, you turn the power on, you put the motor on, and it's gonna rotate for you constantly. Also, this plug is important because otherwise your chemicals are gonna shoot out whichever hole is not covered. And then you're just wasting chemicals. So, found that out. So you'll just slide this in nice and gently, and it is important to make sure your wheels are the proper distance. If you have a short tank and these wheels are way out here, it's gonna sag and you don't wanna bend or ruin any of your gears in here, so you wanna make sure your wheels are adjusted to the right size of your tank. So that works out perfectly. So we're gonna lower that back down. We'll slide this into place, align, perfect. It's in alignment. This is closed off, so I'm gonna turn the power on. I'm gonna turn my motor on. And it'll rotate, and then it'll rotate the other way. And it just does it all for you. So you have your timer set up, and you can just let that do its thing, and you don't have to worry about it at all. It's constant agitation, so it makes the whole process a lot quicker. And it's rotating it inside that temperature water that you need it to be. So over on your control panel, you have 6 dials. You have your on-off, you have your pump, which is gonna circulate your water. You have the motor speed, which is gonna determine how quickly this rotates. And then you have 3 dials for your temperature, which is in Celsius. And that's pretty much how you control everything there. There is a little slide over here to adjust the kind of height of your water, depending on what tank you're using and how much water you need in here. And then of course, there is your handle to dump out the chemicals when you're done. So it's great. If I have this set up over at my sink, I can kind of put this underneath the hose here and empty out my chemicals when I'm done, and then I'll pour them into the top section here. So it would go in right there. It'll go into the tank, do its thing, and once my time is up and I need to switch that, it'll pour out the end here. So this is just a much easier way of doing things compared to a smaller Patterson tank, and I've really enjoyed the process so far. It does take a little bit of time to get your water in, get your temperature up, but that's kind of normal anyways, so you're not really losing out on that at all. And this is just cuts out a lot of the errors like we talked about to make sure you're getting the best results possible in developing your film. Now, this is not mine, unfortunately. This is my friend's Chris. He has a couple of these actually, and he's actually bringing in a JOBO dryer in here as well pretty soon. And then also we're gonna try and get a Niritsu scanner into my garage as well. So stay tuned for that. That will be very interesting. I'm hoping this coming weekend. So then I'll pretty much have a full setup in here, which, leads to other things, which we'll talk about later. Just make sure you're on that email list I mentioned before. So not only is this Chris's setup, but he's actually given me plenty of study material to go along with it. The JOBO handbook, more instruction pamphlets, rotary process manual. What is this one? This is the darkroom handbook. More information on the JOBO, consumer price list, which I don't think is relevant anymore. The lift gate, chemistry comparison, the JOBO darkroom, the home darkroom. So plenty of stuff to bring me up to speed on how to actually use this machine, which is great because it was a little intimidating at first, but I'm much more comfortable with it now that I've put, like I said, 20, 30 rolls of film with it than I was originally. These tanks, you used to be able to get them for a couple $100. People were literally throwing them away because film was going out the door, just like film cameras. You could get them for dirt cheap because nobody was using them anymore. And now they're a few $1,000s a piece. So he was able to snag a couple of these back when they were dirt cheap. And now, of course, they've become much pricier. So this has just been a great, awesome tool to use. And I'm really looking forward to all the capabilities and things it's gonna open up, especially if I start doing large sheet film or anything like that, or any bigger formats that you can't really do at home unless you have a setup like this. So that is really gonna be interesting, and those will definitely be things I'm trying out, and I will be sharing the results with you. So that's kind of it. I just wanted to give you kind of an update on what my film developing setup is. Of course, I need to get a bigger scanner, a better drying system, all that stuff, but again, that's all coming in soon. So those will all kind of be things that I'm gonna be going over and sharing with you. If you have questions on the CPP2 or just film developing in general, make sure you leave those in the comments, and I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as I can.